Welcome to This Is My Architecture. I'm Matt from AWS. Today we're in New York City, and I'm joined by Mike from SIOS. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Matt.
So tell us a little bit about SIOS.
Well, SIOS has a high availability solution that is host-based, which makes it very portable. I can run high availability in the AWS, in cloud, on-prem, any type of hybrid layer. They also cover Linux and Windows platforms across everything a customer would have.
So I know that SIOS can do a lot, and you have a product portfolio that can handle a bunch of different use cases. But today we're going to talk a little bit about how to use it with Microsoft SQL Server, correct?
Right.
Great. When customers are running SQL Server databases, I hear them talking about always-on availability groups and failover clusters, et cetera. So how is your product different? What options does this give to customers?
Right. It's truly simplified, Matt. So once we get a SCSI device presented to the number of nodes in the cluster, whether it's 2 or more, Datakeeper Cluster Edition takes control of that SCSI device,
okay,
and then presents it as a cluster resource volume to Failover Cluster Manager.
Okay.
At that point, it's traditional failover cluster management. You don't even know that Datakeeper is living under the covers.
So as far as Windows is concerned, it sees a cluster volume, and it doesn't even know that SIOS is behind the scenes presenting it.
Correct, because we're so tightly integrated with the APIs in there. So we provide awareness for the failover cluster management. Failover clustering will tell our volumes to perform a failover if it is necessary.
So this is then no longer using always-on availability groups?
Correct, and the combination of enterprise licensing plus the always-on availability group licensing is an enormous Excel sheet entry, if you will. So our solution removes all that complexity and just simplifies not only the implementation, but the ongoing administration.
Okay, so that's interesting for me. So this eventually gives choices to customers because it allows them to have really high availability to the standard of something like an always-on availability group with enterprise licensing, but not necessarily at that cost.
Yeah, if not beyond also, because a lot of the AAG configurations, they utilize some log shipping. Well,
okay.
Log shipping isn't quite synchronized data.
Got it.
So you need to wait for consistency checks to complete before that SQL resource comes back online. So our failover compared to that topology would be far faster in under a couple minutes.
Well, that's great. So great for the RTO and RPO objectives of our customers.
Yes.
Now, sort of going one level deeper, we were talking about synchronous replication and sort of the advantages of your product over traditional log shipping. How's the data actually, how's the synchronization happening?
Yeah, so once you present that EBS volume in the EC2 system, we're going to inject a SCSI driver that enables us to have an NBD client-server relationship. That network block device enables us to use the LAN to have that synchronization occur. So a write comes into SQL 1, of course the log to the database. Before these commit an ACK back, it makes sure it's written to its synchronous partner. Now, you could also have a third copy on-prem in a hybrid configuration, or maybe another region in AWS.
Okay,
right?
Great.
Just for a DR copy. But that ACK will not come back until the synchronous copy is committed and written.
So in a case, for example, across AZs where you have high speed, low latency network between the availability zones, you can have synchronous replication. Where there might be more latency either on premises or to another region, you also have the option for asynchronous replication.
Right. So a write coming into the system would essentially be passed through and written to both volumes, but the ACK here is only going to come back once it's written to the second copy.
Got it.
And in the case of we'll call this the asynchronous copy, because maybe that's high latency, out of region, maybe they don't pay enough for low latency pipes, et cetera. So this one has a buffer. It's allowed to fall behind a little bit, but it will still catch up as best as it can over time.
So you mentioned EBS volumes that you're attaching to the EC2 instances in these sort of SQL Server nodes across availability zones. Are you limited to a single EBS volume, or can you present sort of multiple volumes or perhaps striped volumes, however you set up your storage?
Yes, so per node, per EC2 instance, I can go out towards 36 volumes.
Great.
And there's no limit in their size, other than what the operating system presents.
Okay, and for databases, I also know that sort of tweaking the IOPS and the different characteristics, whether it's EBS volume type or how you're really tuning your storage, is very important. Does SIOS, is it prescriptive in terms of how you need to configure and your EBS volumes, or what type you use?
So the types of volumes would be that of your traditional metrics from that I/O.
Okay.
But remember, this replication does happen, so it adds that much I/O over the LAN because of that synchronization.
Okay, so it's up to you. It's up to the customer, but you need to account for that little bit of I/O for
Yes.
the replication. Okay, so that's going to be specific to each customer environment as well.
Right, right. But we don't add any overhead to that. There's been tests that customers came back with us, and iometer results were like out of 2,200, it dropped 10 when they turned on replication.
Got it. So
Very
there's not
impressive.
high overhead.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is great because really my takeaway here is that if I'm a customer, I have more choice. You know, if I want to have high availability, if I want to have DR in another region or on premises, if I don't necessarily want to use always-on availability groups. I mean, I know that we've both worked with customers, for example, who is not just a licensing concern, their actual application is not compatible with SQL using always-on availability groups. So this gives them choice. You can use SIOS Data Keeper, you can still be highly available in the way you need to be, but you don't need to pay all that money, and you can still remain compatible with your old application. So that's great for customers.
Yes, very enabling and open, and the simplicity of it is what we hear the most. I just grab that volume of equal size between my cluster nodes, set it and forget it.
Well, that's great. This is a really good example of how you can be really successful running enterprise-grade, big, highly available SQL Server clusters on Windows, on AWS. It's nice to see. So I'm going to ask you one more question before we go here. So this is a great solution for high availability, Windows servers and SQL Server specifically. But I don't think it's limited to this, right? Can you use it for other applications as well?
Yes, definitely. We have customer bases out there that are using it for SAP, ASCS instances, Oracle, etc. It's not limited to SQL. Our integration also goes across all the major Linux flavors.
Great.
And also offers a failover cluster management solution that is standard across all of those Linux flavors.
Okay, that's actually interesting because each distribution has its way of doing sort of cluster
Own
management.
little things.
Yeah, it's so cool. So great, you have a general solution for sort of high availability for cluster solutions on AWS. I like the flexibility it gives for customers, and I like how it shows that you can run enterprise-grade SQL Server in the cloud on AWS with great success. So thanks for showing it with us.
All right.
And thanks for watching. This is My Architecture.